Bad boy chain busting like the rainbow. I'm off yak, I'm with yak in the limbo. Yelling out the window, money in the thing. Yeah, we outside again. Couple goons with me, we ain't hiding it. Brand new color, and that's what we sliding in. That little bitch, I proud of her. That pretty girl, she proud of it. I can't fall in love, cause that money be my bottom. But she still sucking and she swallow it. All these said he hating, cause more money be more problems than we're in. Can't stop, won't stop, bad boy. Always upgrading from my last one. I don't want to shut your hands up.
This isn't connected to anything, right?
No.
But it's connected to the internet?
Sure, yeah. You can have it on the phone.
Yeah. I'm actually going to leave it right here.
Okay, fine.
Look, there's three balls. Hey, what's up? Good, man. Been a minute since the conference. I've been good, man. You know? Been good. Good to see you.
Said, Vanessa just told me the mic is live right now.
No matter what you say, what you do, when I'm alone, I'd rather be with you. Got these other feelings, I'll be right by your side till 2005.
Okay, hold up, wait a minute. All good, just a week ago. Crew at my house, and we party every weekend. So on the radio, that's my favorite song. Make me bounce around like I don't know, like I won't be here long. Now the thrill is gone, got no patience, cause I'm not a doctor. Go, why is you lying? Girl, why you move faster? Yeah, me casa su casa. Got it stripping like Gaza. Got so high off volcanoes. Now the flow is so lava. Yeah, we spit that saliva. iPhone got message from Viber. Either the head is so hydra or we let bygones be bygones. My God, you pay for your friends. I'll take that as a compliment. Got a house full of homies. Why I feel so the opposite. Incompetent ain't the half of it. Saturdays with young lavish. It's sad it is, I'm bad as it. These they took from the cabinet. Well, sorry, I'm just scared of the future. Till 2005, I got your back, we can do this. Hold up.
No matter what you say, what you do, when I'm alone, I'd rather be with you. Got these other feelings, I'll be right by your side till 2005. Hold up,
Hold up.
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 hold up, hold up. No matter what you say, what you do, when I'm alone, I'd rather be with you. Got these other feelings, I'll be right by your side till 2005. Hold up,
Hold up.
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 hold up.
Hold up. I used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain. And when I'm long gone, whole crew singing swan song. Cause we all just ticking time bombs. Got a Lambo like LeBron's mom. And no matter where all of my friends go, Emily, Fam, and Lorenzo, all of them people my kinfolk. At least I think so. Can't tell. Cause when them checks clear, they're not here. Cause they don't care. It's kinda sad, but I'm laughing. Whatever happens, assassins are stabbed in the back of my cabin, Labrador yapping. I'm glad that it happened. I mean it. Between us, I think there's something special. And if I lose my mental, just hold my hand even if you don't understand. Hold up.
No matter what you say or what you do, when I'm alone, I'd rather be with you. Got these ugly songs, I've been right by your side till 2005. Hold up,
Hold up.
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 hold up,
Hold up. Hold up.
hold up. No matter what you say or what you do, when I'm alone, I'd rather be with you. Got these ugly songs, I'll be right by your side till 2005. Hold up,
Hold up.
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 hold up.
You a bad girl and your friends bad too. Oh, you got the swag, saucy drippin' swag goo. You a bad girl and your friends bad too. Oh, you got the swag, saucy drippin' swag goo. Oh.
I may be young, but I'm ready to give you all my love. I told my girls you can get it. Don't slow it down, just let it go. So in love, I'll give it all away. Just don't tell nobody tomorrow. So tonight, I'll do it every way. Because not until the morning light. 'Cause we like to party. Hey, hey, we like to party. We like to party. Your touch is driving me crazy. I can't explain the way I feel. Top down with the radio on, and the night belongs to us. Just hold me close, don't let me go. So in love, I don't care what they say. I don't care if they talking tomorrow. 'Cause tonight, that I give you everything. Music not until the morning light. 'Cause we like to party.
Set the scene, 3,000 degrees. I ain't worried about them Oaklands over there, but they worry about me. I got a homeboy named Butter and another homeboy named Cheese. Well, with me, baby, I make it milk till it drip down your knees. Spit it, she for real low, brain real low. Kiddo say he looks up to me, this just makes me feel old. Never thought that we could become someone else's hero. Man, we were just in the food court eating our gyros yesterday. That's the way. Every single morning I try to pray. Grandma and them, they never forgot. Nothing else really mean nothing to me. I ain't studying the beat. Talking to me. Girl, why you fucking with me? Move on, ain't nothing to see. Shh, always something to saw. I'm the wrong, off the rip. Cause of him, all of them will remember. But the men, nut, they fell in love with rap. Black like having your cousin back. Blue like when that rent is due. Cream like when I'm loving you. Yeah.
I'll give it all away. Just don't tell nobody tomorrow. 'Cause tonight, that I give you everything. Music not until the morning light. 'Cause we like to party.
I won't deny it. Half the time you send a text, yep, you know I'm not replying. Just to let you know I'm not one of them you be dodging. I'm the one that you dodge with. I'm the one that you gon' take that dress you're saving out the closet. I'm the one you need alone. I'm the one that when you're around your friends that you gotta put on speakerphone. Just so you could let them know what we be on. Like he the one. Yeah, yeah. I know I'm young, but you respect me like a father figure. Young mobbish, probably make your father figures. Shine down Perrier out in Perry with a Perrier's going. Well, I would tell you, but I gotta paraphrase. And even when you trippin', we trippin', I pay for you. Gourmet for you, chauffeur arrange for you. I take the flight alone earlier in the day for you. Just to beat you there, prepare and let you know I'm waiting for you. Finally famous.
I ain't like the mothers. And I ain't about to play no games with you. You know what your problem is. You don't ever see the big picture. Ooh, I want you to take me serious. Oh, baby, I want you to take me serious.
Waiting for you. I be waiting for you. You got a young boss little like me waiting for you. You got that bomb arrow little, I be waiting for you. Who you love? Tell me who you fucking love. Tell me who you wanna fucking love. I left that sexy dress out on the bed with a note there, laying for you with directions where I'm waiting with dinner and waiting for you. I'm the nigga. She tell me I'm the and that's your even when you got a that you make love with, but right before take drugs with. Then right after hit the tub, wait on me with suds. Then you back that. Bump me like it's 9-9. Wine fine like a bottle from the 9-9. Hit you with the 99 like it's prime time. Killed the had to hit that shit like 9 times.
You ready, man?
Party people in the place to be. It's about that time for us to.
Yeah, what you know about going out? Head west, red legs, TVs, all up in the headrest. Try and live it up, ride jewel, bigger truck, piece all glittered up. Stick a kid, what? Jig with a cut, Chris spit it up. Ride, get your till I can't get it up. I'm a big
Check. Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning. Woo! Man, it's a beautiful sight. Wow. This is awesome. Good morning and welcome to MOCAN 2023, our Men of Color Leadership Conference for this year at Pasadena City College. We just want to thank you all for being here in person and for all the folks in the live stream right now. I think we had about 700 people register for this free conference. Yeah, incredible. I know that this is a professional conference, and we dressed up real nice to come here, and we came from long and far, and, students and folks on buses, and, y'all came from a long way, but we also want to have a lot of fun today. We want to have a lot of fun today. We want to celebrate you all. We want to celebrate ourselves. And so, we got my man DJ Spoof over here. He's going to be playing some jams throughout the day. He's going to keep this thing live and interactive and fun. We're going to do our best to do that for you as well. So my name is Rohan Desai, and I'm a counselor here at Pasadena City College. I'm also the coordinator of our Men of Color program, Ascend Promise Scholars, and the counselor for our formerly incarcerated student program, which is CORE. So I got a few alumni here from CORE, so shout out to CORE. I'm also part of the executive board of Men of Color Action Network, and I'm this year's I'm a co-conference chair. And luckily, in a full circle moment, I get to co-chair with my brother from another mother, Matthew Williams, who is also at Pasadena City College. And, him and I go back about 10 years. I think I was an intern when he was an intern, and then he was a counselor, then I was a counselor, and we just kept following each other, and we ended up here full time. So it's a beautiful moment for both of us. So thank you. A lot of us here are from different, intersecting identities. The conference is for men of color, but we have people here from all different types of identities. And we thank you for being here. You know, I myself am a proud first son of immigrants from the Fiji Islands and India. I'm a proud brother. I'm a proud first-generation student. I'm a proud Angelino. I'm a proud first-gen doctoral student. And most, you know, my work has been men of color, so I'm most proud to be a man of color. And, you know, especially when you got multiple ethnicities and you live in a very homogeneous neighborhood, it can be hard to get in where you fit in. So, you know, this men of color, all encompassing, that's why we include everybody who identifies as a male of color in MOCAN, and we really celebrate that. I'm also very proud to say that this is my 13th year at this college, and to be able to host this conference with my boy Matt at this school where I've been working for 13 years and had the pleasure and honor of working with amazing students and colleagues, it's truly an honor, and I'm very appreciative of that. I personally really hope you all enjoy today because we put a lot of work into it, not just myself, the members of the MOCAN board, many of you are in here right now, and some of you are helping out in overflow, and that's how we do. Like we just because it's our conference, we're out working, running around. You see folks running around doing damage control. It's amazing, and that's part of this brotherhood that is MOCAN. And we'll share a little bit more about what MOCAN is when we have our president come up. So that's enough about me. Let's get to the reason why we're here, right? And that's you all. That's all of you who made the trek over here. That's all of you that came with your students. That's all of you students who came with your professors and came with your friends, came with your family. I met a father earlier today who brought his son, and that's incredible. This year's theme is breaking barriers. And coincidentally, that's kind of one of the marketing campaigns at PCC right now. So it just kind of ended up that way. But, we're here to celebrate the strength that comes from overcoming obstacles in our lives and the barriers and challenges that we face as men of color. And also to celebrate your strength, your perseverance, your resiliency, your power. All of you in here today have broken barriers in some way, whether you know it or not, right? Whether that's just getting here could be a barrier. Navigating having the navigational capital to navigate the public school system, or to get to a bus on time, or to have the social capital to get a friend to give you a ride here is pretty amazing. So, thank you for being here, and again, props to the strength and resiliency and power that you all are displaying here. Everybody here is going to get, 220 students, I should say, are going to get the opportunity to get $100 cash sent to you. We really thank our sponsors, and it's really for those of you that have the opportunity to donate to our organization, please do so. That's how we're able to do these free conferences for students. Many organizations charge an arm and a leg for these students, and we love those conferences. Don't get me wrong, I'm there all the time, and I enjoy it. But we feel it's very important to host a free conference for our students and anybody who really wants to learn more and get involved and advocate for men of color. So again, if you can donate. This is 5th year now. I think I've been involved in the last 3. We've got a bunch of schools here. I said 700 attendees. We got 30 plus colleges here, not to mention nonprofits and independent consultants. Year 1 was Santa Monica College. So where's Santa Monica at? Okay. And then year 2 we had El Camino College. Where's El Camino at? Wow, El Camino's in the house. We got an air horn or something like that? Yeah? We got El Camino's in the house, y'all. There we go. I said we're going to have some fun. All right. And then we had CPT Compton. Where's Compton at? Last year, we had an incredible in-person conference at Los Angeles Harbor College. Yvonne Silva and Dr. Luis Dorado did an amazing job. Where's LA Harbor at? Beautiful. And then we got PCC, right? So we're year 5. Where's PCC at? We don't get air horn? We don't get an air horn? There we go. There we go. All right. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We have these programs here. These programs were printed last week. And as y'all know, that work in the community college, things change every single day. And so what was in here is no longer the truth. This is the truth. If you have an insert, this is the truth. This is where all the sessions are located. If you get lost, or if you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, or where do I get my food, or do I get food? We have folks here wearing these Somos PCC t-shirts. So thank you to these are volunteers, y'all. Please thank them. They are not getting paid for this work, and they're doing it out of the love of their heart. Most of them students, so we very much appreciate them. So if you have questions, you can definitely ask one of them. You could ask me. You could ask any of the folks with the MOCAN pin on their jacket, and they will be able to guide you. So last thing, at the end of this event, we're going to be having, I said 220 people get $100, right? Every year we try to do more with this conference. We're also going to be giving out 10 $500 scholarships at the end of this event. So folks that applied for our Breaking Barriers scholarship, we're going to be giving them 10 scholarships. So like, we're trying to do it. We're trying to do it for free, right? We're trying to do this for free. But that's pretty much all of the housekeeping stuff. There's going to be a QR code on the screen after the closing session. And you students who want that 220, you're going to take a picture of that QR code, and you're going to fill out the post-conference survey. In fact, if the post-conference survey is for everybody, we would highly appreciate if everybody filled it out, because it just informs us doing a better job next year and also capturing some much-needed data. As many of you know that work in this field, the data is crucially important for us to make advances. But anyway, that's enough about me rambling. I'm going to pass it on now to one of the folks on our college who made this possible, and one of the many people who made this day possible, the president and superintendent of Pasadena City College, Dr. Erica Androgenis.
Okay, now this is the way to start a day, people. Yeah, bring me back when you start playing some Post Malone, and then you'll really see me. Because he's awesome. I saw him in November. He is amazing. If you ever want a good concert, Post Malone is it, I'm telling you. Anyway, well, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for that amazing welcome to me. Hello out there in the overflow room. I just want to tell you, I've been here almost 4.5 years, and I don't remember ever greeting people at a conference with an overflow room. So props to the folks, Rohan, Matthew, everybody. Okay? This is serious business, folks. This is amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to come here. You are in for an amazing day of activities. You have Dr. Frank Harris, who is just gonna blow your mind. We are so lucky that Dr. Harris clearly likes to travel around the state, because I can tell you I have seen him speak so many places, and it is worth it every single time. So thank you for being mobile. That's all I can say. Thank you. Rohan he's very persuasive. So I got an email from him, and he said, hey, I have an idea. I really want to bring this amazing conference to Pasadena City College. Are you in? And I think I said, what does it take? And he did a great job. He gave me a budget. He said, this is what we need. And I said, what did I say, Rohan? Let's make it happen. Exactly. So this is really important, And I think I only see one other college president in the room. Is that right? Do I have? I have one right here. Okay, Annabelle Neary. Okay, Annabelle, tag, you're it. Okay, be thinking Santa Anta, right? Yeah, because that's part of what makes this happen. Part of it is the passion of the network, the people on the ground who do this amazing work. But part of it is presidents like me who firmly believe in the work that's being done, who firmly believe in the power of bringing all of you together, of the energy in the room, of the fellowship in the room, of what you're going to walk away from. And it's important for presidents to pay it forward. So tag, you're it, Annabelle. Just saying. Done. Did you hear that? Everybody heard that? Even the overflow room, you heard it. Done. All right, you're good. You know, I just want to say welcome. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for investing your time. I think you're going to see this is going to be an amazing day. And you're going to meet people throughout the day, and I've gotten to greet a lot of folks I've known over the years. There are so many champions out there for you. There are so many people who are rooting for you. They're in this room. They're in the overflow room. They're all around the edges of this room. Call on them, okay? Connect with them, because there is what's going to make a difference for you, because you're all good, right? You've got the power. You've got everything you need. Let us help you. Let us guide you. Let us be what you need. That's why we have a network like this. That's why California Community Colleges exist, because we're here to be here for you. So let us do that. There are lots of great things in the program. When I used to go to camp, the camp director used to say, you get out of camp what you put into it. And that means be here for that last session. Be here to click on that QR code to see what you can get. Go to the sessions. There's so much there for you. And let us embrace you and push you forward. So have a fabulous day. Welcome to Pasadena City College.
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? Oh, let's try that again. Can we turn that up a little bit more? Can we run that back? Let's run that back. Turn it up a little more. Let me try that again. How y'all doing? Let's go, let's go, let's go. Welcome, bienvenidos. My name is Matthew William. Thank you, sir, I appreciate that. That's actually D Smoke, Inglewood's finest. He's actually Panamanian, African American. My name is Matthew Williams. I am the co-chair of the of the Men of Color Action Network here today. And before I get started, I would like to present Dr. Edgar Jonas with an award. So if you mind coming back to the stage. So I'm just going to read off this verbatim. Okay, this is from the Men of Color Action Network. Okay, this says, "Thank you for your outstanding commitment to our community college Men of Color, Men of Color Leadership Conference, Pasadena City College, April 7th, 2023. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Yes. Thank you so much. I don't do a lot of speaking engagements, so you gotta just give me a little grace here. I'm trying to catch my breath. I've been running around all morning though, but I just gotta say it's a beautiful crowd today. Just give yourselves a round of applause. I also got to give my boy Rohan Desai a shout out. This guy right here, just give him a round of applause too. You know, when you meet people in your life and you know you got an instantaneous connection and you know you got that spark where you can be able to do big things, that's my guy right here. So I can't say enough about him. You should have saw him earlier this week. grinding. You know, I grind, but he made my grind look like nothing. So I just got to give him a lot of love for what he did. So I'm going to give another round of applause. I love that man. I also want to give a shout out to the other MOCAN board members here and the MOCAN members. So if you guys are here, please raise your hand. We'll give them some more love. All right. So a lot of great things are going to happen today. Man, I'm just so excited to see a packed house here at Pasadena City College. I'm a PCC alum. I'm going to give you a little bit of my background. I was just hired here full-time tenure track as the athletic counselor here. And the person that hired me is sitting right at the end of this row right here, Dr. Edgar Jonas, so thank you again. But again, you know, somebody invested into me, okay? And a bit of my background, I'm a proud African-American, Mexican-American male from El Sereno, a local Angelino town not too far from here. Not that people know about El Sereno or El Sereno, or Sereno, if you're really from the hood. My mother and my father both met in a community college. And then, as you know, 3 kids came out, and then, you know, we came here and we did our thing. So you never know what you're going to do when you're at the community college. So this is a great opportunity to rub elbows and maybe meet your spouse, you know? Who knows? But at the very least, you're going to make connections throughout the day. I'm also an LUSD product. I came from the inner city. How many people here would say they're from the inner cities? Give yourself a shout out. There we go. Represent your hood. Represent your hood. But again, I'm also a product of PCC, as I said, and I came here with no idea what I wanted to do. I remember the first time I sat down with the counselor, I was nervous. I didn't know where I wanted to go. All I knew is I wanted to play sports. And he planted a seed in me, okay? And that seed was, you know, believe in who you are and believe on where you're going to land up. And I took that, I planted it, but I didn't just nurture myself. I allowed others to nurture me. And the only way I allowed it to happen is by being vulnerable, okay? Many of you here today, how many people here doubted coming here today? Just by raise your hands. Maybe say, you know, maybe I don't know if I should be here today. Just raise your hands. It's all good. For the few of you that were courageous enough to do that, that's a natural reaction because I had the same reaction. I doubted myself. I didn't believe that this was my place. I didn't think I was a college material type of individual. I thought I was just an athlete. But I bet on myself. I put myself out in an environment where I was surrounding myself with individuals that were in places that I wanted to be, okay? And hopefully you find yourself in the same place today, okay? Somewhere where you want to be, somewhere where you feel that somebody knows my story, somebody knows my path, and somebody's going to push me towards that goal, okay? What I just want to let you know right now is that what we're going to do is we're going to be touching on quite a few topics, and all I ask of you is to engage yourself in the process. Commit yourself to the process and embrace what you learned today. But don't just leave it there. Don't just leave it there. I want you to take what you have. I want you to take what you have and pay it forward. Just how Rohan was gracious enough to say I mentored him, he didn't know my guy was mentoring me too, okay? It goes both ways. It's a reciprocal relationship. So when you have these opportunities here, absorb it, grow, expand, and then take it out to the world and make this a better place because the Lord knows we need a better world today. But with that being said, I'm going to introduce one of my mentors, okay? He is actually the president of the Men of Color Action Network. He is also the SMC Athletics Director, and he is one of the visionaries. Give him a round of applause. One of the visionaries of the Men of Color Action Network. His name is Mr. Reggie Ellis. Everybody give him a round of applause.
You know, I usually don't get nervous about a lot of things, and everybody asked me how I was doing this morning. I said, I'm cool, but I'm nervous as hell right now. I want to thank all of you for coming. This has been a year's worth of work, actually 5 years worth of work. This organization started 5 years ago with about 5 people. And our first conference was at Santa Monica College, and I think we had maybe 150 people. And so we've grown, and actually we've outgrown the space that we want to have. So I'm very happy to everyone. First of all, I want to acknowledge all of our distinguished visitors here in the front row. I'm not going to name any trustees, presidents, everybody. The other thing I want to acknowledge the students. Thank you guys. This is for showing up. The ladies in the audience, please stand. Give these ladies a round of applause. And if you young men in the audience don't know, we are the Men of Color Action Network, but we wouldn't be nothing without them. Okay? All right. So my challenge for all you young men and women in today is I want you to meet 3 to 5 new people and try to connect and make those people friends for life. Someone that you can go back to and reach out to, and they could mentor you and, make you become the person or the woman that you're going to be in life. He doesn't know it, but one of my mentors is sitting right here in the front row, Mike Tuatazzi. I am where I am now because Mike hired me. So with that being said, I want you to go out, meet 3 to 5 people, make friends, have fun, and enjoy the day. Okay? Thank you. Where's the MC? All right, well, Rohan.
All right. I'm back. So we're a little behind schedule today, but it's all good because we're going to have some fun, and if we need to make some adjustments throughout the day, we will. I am about to bring on somebody who, I very much admire, and he is giving us his time today, not only to do an opening keynote, but also to do a workshop for our professional panel. So very much appreciate him for his time, making way from San Diego. It's not an easy trek. And I am pulling up your bio right now. Just keeping it real. Okay. So. All right, it's that time. I'm ready. We got it up. Google is a little slow here, but we got it up. So, Dr. Frank Harris III is a professor of post-secondary education and co-director of the Community College Equity Assessment Lab at San Diego State University. Dr. Harris is also a senior strategist in San Diego State University's Division of Campus Diversity and Student Affairs, and in 2021-2022, the SDSU president named Harris the faculty athletics representative. In fall 2022, Harris began his appointment as Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in San Diego State's College of Education, and he received the SDSU Alumni Distinguished Faculty Award for the 2022-2023 year. Let's give him massive props for that. Dr. Harris is best known for his expertise in racial inequity in post-secondary education and has made important contributions to knowledge about college student development and the social construction of gender and race in college contexts. His work prioritizes populations that have been historically underrepresented and underserved in education, and he has obtained competitive grants and extramural funding for his research. Harris's scholarship has been published in leading journals for higher education and student affairs research and practice, and his commentary has been sought by high-profile media outlets including CNN, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and the Chronicle of Higher Education. Colleges and universities across the country consult Harris regularly for his expertise on student equity, student success, and institutional transformation, and he has worked with more than 100 post-secondary institutions, community organizations, and nonprofits on equity-related efforts. He has also delivered thousands of academic and professional presentations throughout his career, 1,001. During the Obama administration, Harris was invited to the White House to share his knowledge and expertise on the status of boys and men of color in education. He also serves on the Every Learner Everywhere Equity Advisory Board and on the Partnership for College Completion Board. Before joining the faculty at San Diego State, Dr. Harris worked as a student affairs educator and college administrator in student crisis support and advocacy, new student orientation programs, multicultural student affairs, academic advising, and enrollment services. He has also served as an adjunct professor of speech communication at LA Trade Technical College, LACCD. Harris earned a bachelor's degree in communication studies at Loyola Marymount University, a master's degree in speech communication at Cal State Northridge, and a doctorate in higher education from the Rossier School of Education at the University of Southern California. So without further ado, let's give it up for our opening keynote, Dr. Frank Harris.
All right, good morning, everybody. Shout out to the DJ. Love the tunes, love the music. It's interesting how music just kind of sets the tone for everything. That being said, I was at a New Edition concert last night, so I know some of the students might not know who New Edition is, but man, I tell you, it was a great way to end the day and get me up. I got up at 3:30 this morning. Left the house at 4:30, and I've been energized ever since. So I'm excited to be here. I want to just first and foremost thank the executive board, Reggie Ellis and colleagues for creating this important space for dialogue and action about the status of men of color in community colleges. I want to thank President Indra Jonas. I don't know if she's still in the room, but leadership is important in this regard. I know we have at least a couple other presidents here, President Neri, Annabelle Neri from Santa Ana College. Great to see you here. We got trustees here. And of course, a big acknowledgement to Rohan and Matt, the conference co-chairs, for creating this wonderful space. I know we have colleagues in the students and colleagues that are in the overflow room, so thank you and acknowledging you here as well. And I am especially grateful to the students. Will all the students who are in attendance please stand up? Right. So to our students, please know that your presence matters, your voice matters, your lives matter, right? And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to reinforce those points. I think I heard Rohan say that there'll be 10 $500 scholarships that'll be distributed. Let's make it 11. I'll add to it, right? Yeah. So, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, whatever you need, we got it covered. All right. And so today I'm going to talk about this concept called race lighting. Some of you may have heard of it. For those who haven't, no worry. I'll make sure I explain it and get you up to speed and really talk about how does race lighting impact the experiences of our men of color in community colleges. And so, before I kind of talk about the details and sort of get into the content around race lighting, I think it's important for us to spend some time talking about, the status and what is going on in the experiences and trends with our men of color in community colleges, right? And I think this is important to do because, the sense that I get is we've kind of gotten away from our focus on men of color over the past couple years. And I think there's some data trends and there's some very important indicators that suggest that we really need to recommit to the work. I think a space like this and the conversations and the actions and the ideas that emerge from a space like this is very important and helps us do that. When I refer to men of color, I'm talking specifically about Black, Latino, Indigenous, Southeast Asian, and Pacific Islander men. These are men, of course, who've been historically and systematically underrepresented in education. These are also the same men that experience what I would describe as chronic apartheid throughout society, as evidenced by their overrepresentation among those who are unhoused, who are impacted by the justice system, who are employed in jobs that do not pay livable wages, and who lack quality access to health care as examples. And so a lot of the insights that I'll share today are going to come from a policy report that my colleague and brother and friend, Dr. J. Luke Woods, some of you might know Dr. Woods. Some of you may have seen Dr. Wood on Dr. Phil last week, which was, which is an interesting experience. Seeing your brother kind of debate Candace Owens, I didn't really know what to make of that, but I think he did a wonderful job. But Dr. Wood and I authored a report in collaboration with the Association of Community College Trustees. And the title, this was this past October, and it was called Increasing the Enrollment, Retention, and Success of Men of Color in Community Colleges. And so I'm going to pull some data points from that report, just again, not to make this an overly academic exercise and not to sort of, make this about research and data, but I do think it's important, right, as we have conversations about what is it that we have to do to better support our men of color. I think we have to have a good understanding of exactly what the data is telling us in terms of, where we are and where we need to be, and even importantly, with a high degree of urgency in terms of getting there. And so the first data point I'm going to share is going to talk about the steep enrollment declines of men of color in community colleges. And here we noted in the report that enrollment declines among men between 2019 and 2021, we know the pandemic was smack dab in the middle of that. And as you can see, the declines for all men of color in community colleges were substantial, but it was particularly acute for Indigenous and Black men whose rates of decline were 26% and 24% respectively. We also presented data on stopping out and stop-out rates in community colleges among men of color. For those who may not be familiar with this concept, stopping out refers to students when a student takes a break for at least one semester before re-enrolling. And as we know, stopping out often leads to non-completion. So in other words, the more a student stops out, the more likely they are to not complete their educational goals. And the data presented here is for the 6-year cohort that began in 2011 and ended in 2017. And as you can see, more than half of Black and more than 45% of Latino men in this cohort reported stopping out at some point during their enrollment. And then finally, report data on achievement as measured by cumulative grade point average in the report. The key takeaway here is that men of color are more likely to have grade point averages of 2.5 or lower in comparison to those who have grade point averages of 3.5 or higher. Now, this next point is very important. This is not to suggest that men of color are not as smart, not as motivated, or not as capable as their white peers. But what I will argue for the time that I have with you today throughout this presentation is that there are factors that exist far beyond the control of the students themselves that have a deleterious effect on student success outcomes for men of color. And then also, I want to highlight again, right, because the data I just showed you was national data, right? So it talks about what's happening across the country. Because we're in California, I think it's also important to highlight just a few trends that speaks to what's happening in California. And what you see here again, right, are course success rates for men who were enrolled in the system in the year 2021. The groups highlighted in red are students whose course success rates were lower than the overall rate, which was 70% for all community college students during that same time frame, right? You see here, it's Indigenous, Black, and Hispanic men highlighted here. Next, we have the rates of men who completed transfer math and English during the same time frame. The overall rate was 22% for the entire cohort, and again, 22% is nothing to be proud of or write home about. But highlighted in red are the groups whose rates fell below that, right? Again, Black, Indigenous, Hispanic, and then here we see our Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian students there. And then lastly, with regard to data, these are the 4-year completion rates for men of color who began in the California Community College system in 2018. And these are the students who earned either the Vision for Success definition of completion or transferred to a 4-year institution. And again, right, the overall rate was 19% for the cohort. And as you can see, Indigenous, Black, Hispanic, and Pacific Islanders were substantially lower than the overall rate, right? So we can see, right, again, this is not about pathologizing our students. This is not about saying, you know, our men of color are not doing what they're supposed to do. But what it is saying is that us as educators and institutions and as a system, we're not doing the things that we're supposed to do to support these students, right? And so that being said, I also think it's important to recognize and highlight some challenges that do not as easily show up in the data that also speak to some of the trends that we've just observed. We know that our students, men of color in particular, are overrepresented among students who experience basic needs insecurities. So we could think of that as, you know, access to food and housing, transportation, and internet access. We have pressures that are situated in what Luca and I call the environmental domain. That's also salient amongst our men of color. And the environmental domain includes all of the factors that exist outside of the context of a college, but has an influence on student success, right? So this is work, family commitments, financial pressures, and stressful life events, to name a few. We have also found in our qualitative work, and this is what I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on today, is that our men of color routinely experience racial microaggressions, and they often experience our campuses as racially hostile, and that has an impact on their experiences and success. We also have deficit perspectives. There are some educators who do believe that men of color are not as smart or not as capable as other students. And what we know about deficit perspectives is that they're self-fulfilling prophecies. If we believe, or if any educator believes that a man of color doesn't belong in their classroom or is not college material, right, or is not worth their time and energy, then it does have an impact on their energy. It has an impact on the effect. It has an impact on how that student experiences that space. And so deficit perspectives are incredibly challenging. We know that we do not necessarily have a critical mass of men of color who exist within our faculty ranks and amongst our administrations. The curriculum doesn't speak to the lived experiences and contributions of men of color. And then finally, to sort of round this out, we know that on most campuses, support for men of color is usually isolated or limited to a small program or one office, or so to speak. And that's not an indictment on the educators who lead those programs and lead those spaces. They do incredible work, but they actually are doing that work without a lot of support and without a lot of resources, and they're expected to achieve extraordinary results, right, because of that. And so all of these are issues and things. Again, it's not about painting a doom and gloom picture, but we do have to be very intentional and understand the challenges as they exist. We have to understand what the data tell us, because only in doing so can we really begin to do the work that we need to do and to come up with the ideas and the policies and the actions that are necessary to make sure that our students have better experiences and that they experience success. I'm going to skip ahead here and start to get into the content related to race lighting. And so those of you who may not have heard of this concept of race lighting, but it's a concept that Luke and I developed during what we call the twin pandemics, so COVID-19 and the racial reckoning that occurred in the year 2020, and it's even since extended beyond that. And we define race lighting as an act of psychological manipulation where people of color receive racial messages that distort their realities and lead them to second-guess themselves. So where does all of this come from? So race lighting is actually rooted in the concept of gaslighting, which I'm sure we've all at least heard or is somewhat familiar with the concept of gaslighting. Now, gaslighting comes from a 1930s film in which the main character, Jack, engages in acts to intentionally manipulate his wife, Bella, all with the goal of controlling her and making her believe that something is wrong with her and that she's not mentally or emotionally well. Now, the reason why it's called gaslight, because in the 1930s, A gas light is a type of lamp that was used to light homes before electricity was available. And it was called that because the light that was created in the lamp was done so by actually heating gas. Now, what's interesting is that when the light was created in one room, it actually dimmed the light in another room. So in the film, you'll see this play out quite transparently. This is how Bella knows that Jack is in another room doing things, even though he's claiming not to be. And so I don't want to ruin the plot for anyone that wants to check out the film, but that's sort of the gist of it, right? And so in its simplest sense, we can think of gaslighting as intentional psychological manipulation by lying or victim blaming. But what happens when gaslighting becomes racial? Well, this is exactly what happened to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery in 2020 and Brother Trayvon Martin in 2012, all of whom were black folks that were murdered by law enforcement, and in Trayvon's case, a vigilante. And instead of focusing on the actions of the people who killed them, folks were quick to ask, why were they doing something, right? Why was George Floyd trying to use a counterfeit $20 bill, right? And why was Ahmaud Arbery running through a white neighborhood looking suspicious? And why was Breonna Taylor dating an alleged drug dealer, right? And so on and so forth. And this was essentially gaslighting, but in a highly charged racist context, and hence this is why we call this concept race lighting. And so interestingly, the same thing happens to men of color in community colleges, especially when it comes to institutions and educators engaging the question why some men of color are not well served and do not experience equitable outcomes. Some of the attributions we often hear are they're not prepared for college. They're not as smart or not as serious about education as other students. They're here for the sports or financial aid. They're not here for school. They have baby mama drama and all sorts of other racist reasons. So consequently, what we often hear from men of color is that they don't feel like they belong in college. They don't feel like they have good relationships with the educators at the institution. They don't feel comfortable reaching out for support and help. And this is why so many of our men of color leave community college without completing their goals. And so one thing that Luke and I have also learned from this and come to understand is that there are at least two main ways in which race lighting occurs. The first is what we call active race lighting, in which the race lighter is aware of their actions and is intentionally trying to manipulate a person. This is very similar to what happened between Jack and Bella in the play Gaslight. Now, the second type is probably a little bit more common, and we call it passive race lighting. And this is what occurs when their intention isn't necessarily to race light, but it does occur when someone does something racist and tries to avoid accountability by being defensive or blaming the victim. But regardless of how race lighting occurs, be it active or passive, the end result is still the same. Feelings of distrust, feelings of doubt, feelings of insecurity, and feelings of frustration by the person on the receiving end of them. And so why should we focus on race lighting? Why should we care about race lighting? Well, here's what we have to recognize. Race lighting has implications for enrollment in our community colleges, and we all recognize that we're in the midst of an incredibly steep enrollment decline, and we know that our men of color are amongst the students who've been most adversely impacted by this. And so not coincidentally, right, addressing race lighting can actually have some impact and help us in some ways stabilize enrollments for men of color and other racially minoritized students. We also know that race lighting has implications for student success. It is very difficult to maximize your potential and success when you are routinely experiencing racism, racial microaggressions, and ultimately race lighting. Third, we've come to know from our work that there's a direct link between race lighting and a host of unhealthy and undesirable outcomes for men of color, notably a diminished sense of belonging, self-worth, lower academic and career outcomes, and the acute effects of racial battle fatigue, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. For the presidents and trustees and the VPs in the room, we have to be concerned about the legal liability that comes with race lighting, right? And so we also know that race lighting can have an effect on the effectiveness of educators. And so I know today we're here to talk about the experiences of men of color, right? And that should be our focus, students of color in particular. But educators of color also experience race lighting. And educators of color can also feel a diminished sense of self-worth, right? And feel a lack of a sense of belonging, and can actually make it difficult for them to do the work that's necessary to fully support our students. And then finally, we have campus racial climate. This is when we have tension and we have anxiety and we have poor relationships among students, and in some cases between educators and trustees, right? And so race lighting has a host of effects and should be a concern for all of us, particularly those of us who are concerned about the status and success of men of color. And so what Luke and I have done, and I promise I won't make this overly academic, right? So sometimes you show something like this and everybody, starts to get like, oh my God, right? What is this guy gonna do? What is he talking about, right? But this type of graphic is really helpful, or can be helpful, in kind of helping us understand how race lighting happens. And if we can understand how race lighting happens and can really understand the consequences of race lighting, then I think we're better prepared and better equipped to actually do something about it, right? And so we can see here from the very beginning that race lighting is rooted in things like white supremacy, white fragility, anti-blackness, and ultimately systemic oppression. And these beliefs spawn both explicit and implicit racial bias. Explicit bias is the bias that we have and that we're keenly aware of. So for example, someone who has a disdain for people of color has an explicit bias. But some bias is not always explicit. Sometimes it's implicit, meaning we have internalized beliefs that we're not aware of, and yet, even though we're not aware of them, they actually have an impact on our thoughts and on our actions and ultimately outcomes. And so then we also say that implicit and explicit bias actually leads to racial microaggressions. And so racial microaggressions are actually defined as the brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults towards people of color. And so quite simply, we know that the three most common racial microaggressions that are experienced by men of color in educational contexts, including community colleges, is an ascription of intelligence, when one assigns a degree of intelligence to a person based on race, an assumption of criminality, when we assume that a man of color is dangerous or criminal or deviant because of their race, and third, pathologizing culture, the notion that the values and the communication styles of the dominant or white culture are ideal, right? So when we hear folks say that those students come from families and communities that don't value education, that's an example of pathologizing culture. And then we say all of this, right, racial microaggressions and implicit and explicit bias actually leads to race lighting. And so we also know that there are 4 common messages that are typically used to race light people of color. Whether it be active race lighting or passive race lighting. The first is what we call resistive actions, and these are messages and behaviors that are meant to defend race lighters against personal racism and their role in racism. So these actions are actually designed to protect and comfort race lighters and their allies at the expense of people of color. Second, we have a misrepresentation of the past, which refers to historical injustices against people of color in ways that advances white supremacy. Third, we have inauthentic allyship, and this refers to advancing the pretense that a person or identity actually supports and protects people of color when they really do not. And then fourth, we have stereotype advancement. And stereotype advancement occurs when we advance stereotypes to frame perceptions about people of color, or more specifically, men of color. And this is the one that we'll spend a little bit more time on. I want to give a couple of examples of this. So one way that stereotype advancement occurs is by suggesting that men of color or people of color are less capable. So I'm going to read this out loud as an example of this. It is constant. It's daily. I could be on the job for 4 or 5 years, or be on the job for 11 to 12 years, and still people would say, you're new to your role and omit things that I actually worked on. I've been in rooms where I've worked on things, and this is pretty routine, and people will constantly thank everyone and then say, oh yeah, and thank me. And the question that I pose, and it becomes an awkward exchange, almost as if the person is trying to explain to me what they're talking about as if I don't get what they're talking about, trying to re-explain something to me that I already know, questioning the decisions that I make, but in a polite way. And it runs the gamut. It goes from someone who reports to me and folks who come into our spaces and ask that person questions as if I'm the one reporting to that person. And it happens all the time. Here's the key part. You start thinking about these folks that you're working with are so knowledgeable and bright and intellectual, and now you're dealing with a whole different set of problems where folks might not respect you for whatever preconceived notions they have, right? So this whole idea that people of color and men of color, and these are all examples from men of male of color educators, are just not as smart or not as capable as others. I'm going to skip less intelligent because it kind of reads and sounds a lot like less capable, but I do want to go to this last one, which is called prone to criminality. A student complained how they were treated by a faculty member. Some of the things that they felt the faculty member said to them wasn't appropriate, and the student wasn't comfortable with what was said to them. When I heard the faculty side of the story, instead of addressing what they were saying, it was more along the lines of putting the blame on the student, saying that they were the disciplinary problem, or they were hard to manage, or they had issues following directions, or that they were being unruly in the classroom. And that definitely comes from a mind where you complain about a certain issue and then somehow, some way, it's turned back into your direction. And you're made to seem as if you were the problem and that the problem originated with you, that you were the reason you were experiencing these things. There's always going to be a tendency to second guess yourself, to doubt whether or not your feelings were authentic or justified, right? And we know that our students experience issues, things like this all the time. And so thinking about all of this, thinking about race slighting and racial microaggressions and all of that, the question we may have to ask ourselves or have to ask ourselves, well, what are the consequences of this? Well, we find that there are at least three main consequences, right? Racial battle fatigue, stereotype threat, and imposter syndrome. And I'm actually going to save racial battle fatigue for last because I want to spend a little bit more time on that one. But stereotype threat is a term that was coined by researchers Claude Steele and Joshua Aronson about the risk of confirming negative stereotypes about an individual's racial, ethnic, gender, or cultural group, right? So this whole idea is that I don't want to, I'm aware of a stereotype about me as a man of color, and I want to make sure that I don't reinforce that stereotype. So I go out of my way to make sure I don't reinforce that stereotype, and I do it so much that it actually starts to have, it's so ingrained in my psyche that it actually starts to have a negative impact on my performance, right? So if I'm thinking about the stereotype of me as a man of color being less intelligent while I'm taking an exam, it could actually negatively impact how I do on that exam, as an example. The second one, imposter phenomenon, refers to the idea of people believing that they are somehow not as smart or not as capable despite having high levels of achievement and accomplishments. And so when we experience imposter syndrome, we believe, or we're concerned, that we've somehow fooled or tricked everyone into believing that we're actually more capable than we really are, right? So even though we have all this success and we've accomplished things, and for our students, maybe you have done really well, somehow you think that, well, maybe I did well because the professor took it easy on me, right? Or somehow you somehow convince yourself that you're not as capable as you are, and that any success that you have was not a deserved success, right? That it was given to you. And the last one, racial battle fatigue. Now, racial battle fatigue comes from the work of I need all the students in the room to write this name down. Dr. William A. Smith, black male professor at the University of Utah, who gave us this concept called racial battle fatigue. And what he argues in developing this concept is that because racism happens almost every day in the lives of people of color, and more specifically men of color, racism is something that we experience almost every single day, be it a racial microaggression or a more explicit act of violence, explicit act of racism, that it actually becomes a core part of our identity. So for example, you would be hard pressed to ask a person of color to describe what is it like to be a person of color, or what does it mean to be a person of color, without them somehow at some point talking about their experiences with racism. And so Smith says that because of this, racial discrimination is what he calls a universal stressor for people of color. It never fades, it never goes away, it becomes an ingrained part of our life and our history and our identity. And he says because of that, racial battle fatigue is a lot like what is described as combat stress syndrome. And combat stress syndrome is what, let's say you have some soldiers, right, who are military personnel who are, out in a war zone, and there's this constant threat of being attacked, right? And so because of that, you're hypervigilant, right? Maybe you're hypersensitive to certain things, right? And so you have this sense that you have to be overly cautious or concerned. Well, the same thing happens when it comes to when it comes to racism. And he says because of that, people of color experience a range of psychological symptoms that are connected to racism, as well as physiological symptoms that are connected to racism. And he says typically if you go to a clinician and said, hey, I'm really struggling, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling depressed, I have headaches all the time, I have stomach aches all the time, or things of that nature, because most clinicians have no idea what racial battle fatigue is, or even if you go to the mental health counselor on your campus, they're not necessarily trained in racial battle fatigue, right? So a lot of times this chronic racism actually gets misdiagnosed as something else, right? Oh, you're just depressed, you need to do this or do more of that, and so on and so forth, right? And so it's important for us to really understand our lived experiences as men of color, and understand it, because it gives us some agency to where we can actually articulate what's going on to us, to the people who are in a position to help us. But even more importantly, it helps us understand and engage in more positive and more affirming talk to ourselves, right? It makes us more mindful about the things that we say to ourselves. There's nothing wrong with me, right? I belong here. I'm brilliant. I'm smart. I'm all these things that they say about other people. And if things are not going well in my experience, it's not just because of what I'm doing, right? Because I'm operating in a system and in an institution and in an environment that was really not designed for my success, right? And when we think about higher education in the United States, it was not designed for pretty much no one in this room to participate in, either as a student, as a faculty member in my case, as a president, as a vice president, and so on and so forth, right? And so even though we're aware of these things, these systems have been in place for a long time. And so even though as we've engaged in a lot of effort and a lot of advocacy to change them, they don't change overnight. And so, a lot of the foundation, of these institutions are rooted in systemic oppression. And so we feel that even as we press up against it and even as we engage in efforts to change it. And so to sort of, try to wrap things up and to bring things to a close, I want to kind of offer what I think of as some important steps with regard to responding to racism, to race lighting. So for the presidents and the vice presidents and the trustees and the deans and other administrators in the room, this slide is for you. And so we think it's important that any manager or anyone that has responsibility for overseeing staff or evaluating, staff and faculty, make sure that they're creating department cultures that are unequivocally anti-racist. Help them really build their capacity to make sure that, being able to create and sustain anti-racist environments is a part of how they're evaluated for the work that they do. Create opportunities to lift what we call lifting minoritized voices, have dialogue, have listening sessions, reach out to men of color, ask them, how are they doing? What are some things that we can do to better support you, right? Really making sure that we're lifting and prioritizing their voices, and more importantly, believe in what they tell us and do what they're suggesting. Making sure we have racially affirming campus spaces, that we have, cultural centers, or that we have clubs and organizations for men of color, and then for our employees, we have employee resource groups. Those are very important spaces. Those are racially affirming spaces that are often embedded in spaces that are not as affirming. And so that's important to do. Making sure we have solid community partnerships that helps to advance racial equity as well. Make sure that anti-racism and all these things are really a part of the institution's identity, its mission, its vision, its values and priorities. It's a part of the institution's culture. There's a lot of statewide policies and advocacy around diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and anti-racism, and so making sure we're leveraging that. And then even more importantly, what do we do personally when we experience racism? The first is what I call making sure that we're engaging in radical self-care, right? Being unapologetic about our self-care, particularly for our students in the room. Making sure that just because you're a student doesn't mean that you can't go and, see grandma every Sunday, right? And, get some of grandma's cooking, right? Or making sure that you're exercising, you're eating well, right? You're doing everything that you can do to take care of yourself. Don't sacrifice your own self and your own health and wellness, right? Because of the drive to obtain goals and degrees. Those are important to do, but not more important than making sure you're taking care of yourself, learning about a lot of the things that we've talked about today. So read more, learn more, talk with your mentors and colleagues about some of these things, and knowing where are the places and spaces where race sliding occurs on your campuses, right? So we know if it's, the financial aid office, for example, or if it's counseling or whatever it may be, doesn't mean that we shouldn't access those spaces, but we should have an idea, okay, this is what I can, expect when I engage in these spaces, and I need to be prepared for that. And then transitioning to safer spaces whenever possible, and making sure that we're documenting our experiences. And I'm not saying document our experience because we want to, gather evidence to sue someone, right? That's not what it's about. But there's a lot of colleagues who engage in journaling and things like that says it's very therapeutic sometimes to kind of write down and journal about the things that we're experiencing. And so, if you're old school like me, you still write things down. You could do voice memos. Everyone has a phone. And so maybe you have, a notes app on your phone where you can document just to help make sense of things as well. And so I am going to, I think for the sake of time, I should probably stop here. Again, thank you all so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here. I love this space. Thank you. I love Tribe. But can I get some Jay-Z as I exit the stage? Yes, sir. World tour, right. Award tour. Right, appreciate it.
Hey, let's get a loud round of applause for Dr. Frank Harris III, huh? And if y'all don't know, if you don't know this song by Tribe Called Quest, it's called Award Tour. Award Tour, which is fitting because we're about to give this man an award on behalf of the Men of Color Action Network. And I'm going to read it to you, Dr. Harris. Men of Color Action Network would like to thank you for your outstanding commitment to Community College Men of Color. Men of Color Leadership Conference, Pasadena City College, April 7th, 2023.
Thank you.
And I just want Dr. Harris to know, this is a crazy full circle moment for MOCAN, because MOCAN actually started at a workshop, by attending a workshop with you and Dr. Wood in 2017. Wow. And that's what made this happen, was them attending that and bringing this to here. So this is an amazing full circle. Yeah, so thank you.
Oh!
There we go. Go ahead. All right. Wow, we're actually on time, and that's incredible. I'm so happy about that. So check it out. we got some more programming for you today. We got, student workshops. We got professional workshops. We have panels in the afternoon. Things are going to get a little bit confusing, but hopefully not too confusing. So I mentioned you have those inserts, right, in your programs. Those have the locations for all of the workshops and all of the panels and everything in there. If you need assistance to find it, there are going to be folks wearing, I said, the PCC Somos t-shirts, Somos PCC t-shirts, and they can help guide you to those spots. But I'm not going to dismiss folks because we're going to do this in a way that makes sense. So if you are a student and you are registered for a student workshop, in fact, everybody here is registered for a workshop. On your name badge, it says which workshop you're registered for. All you have to do is find that workshop name, look at that insert, that sheet of paper, and it'll tell you what room you're in. Students, when you exit this room, and I'm going to dismiss you momentarily. When you get out this room, you're going to go downstairs, and there'll be folks holding signs with your workshop. They will walk you to your workshop if you need help finding it. Okay? So I'm actually going to dismiss you based on the workshop. Can I get one of those? So if you are signed up as a student, if you are signed up for being mentored and having a mentor matters, keys to success in school and life, you will go downstairs and find the individual holding the R102 sign, and they will walk you to your session. So if you are in session 1, being mentored and having a mentor matters, keys to success in school and life, please go downstairs now. If you're a student in the unspoken side of empathy, how caring can hurt you, you will be finding the individual downstairs with the GM 105 sign, and they will walk you to GM 105. If you're in the Love Yours hip hop and mental health session, you'll be walking downstairs, finding the individual GM 104 sign, and they will walk you to your session. Leadership within the imposter phenomenon and community cultural wealth, R104, someone downstairs will walk you to your session. Breaking barriers around sex, reimagining consent for black and brown men, GM 103. Downstairs, somebody will walk you to your session. If you need help finding GM 103 in any of these rooms, look for somebody with a Somos PCC t-shirt. Beyond our trauma, R117. Somebody will walk you down to your session downstairs. Barbershop talk, navigating higher ed as a man of color, GM 103. Who am I? Discovering individual, cultural, social, and personal identities is R109. And for those of you that signed up today, the on-site registrants, you'll be going to R108 for the Barbershop 2 session. For professionals, if you are staying for Dr. Frank Harris's breakout session, that will be in this room. For those of you going to strengthening and expanding existing male success initiative, that is in Circadian, which is to the left. When you walk out this building, it'll be on your left. Developing courses with intention and purpose is literally right down the hallway in the same floor in CC 233. Water roses that rise from concrete supporting formerly incarcerated students is in R102 downstairs in this room here, in the building next door. And barbershop talk, navigating higher ed as a man of color for professionals, will be in Harbison Hall, which is the overflow check-in space. guys, man. Appreciate you.